one of my really smart friends, PhD and everything, we ended up talking about Bill Gates, and he said he was just reading this How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, and he was so taken by Bill Gates's plan, and he couldn't see through it. He didn't see it, and it kind of shocked me. I was like, damn it, because I know that if I wasn't kind of in this stuff as much as I am, I probably wouldn't see through it. It does shock me that a guy that wise about so many things was like, this is the way forward. It's the only way forward. And the big picture I see is that this is actually going to do more damage to the world than good.
I have a few things to say about that. First, I have to show you a book um,
Is it
because
another Bill Gates book?
it's a better book.
No,
It's a better book
oh,
than the
it's a
one.
Bill Gates.
I think this is important to say because that reaction your friend had, it's by design. It's seductive because people want to believe that there are solutions to these problems. I've had these conversations too, where they say like, no, I can't believe that that's a problem because actually I'm really resting a lot of my own sense of well-being on the fact that somebody out there has an
Yeah,
answer.
someone
But
smart.
Welcome to Sustainability for Sinners, a non judgmental, informative, and hopefully helpful place you can learn about sustainability. I focus on health, water, food, energy, antibiotics, detoxifying your life, and much, much more. If you like what you see, then hit the like and subscribe button for more content coming soon. Enjoy!
The green technology future that we seem to be promised that is going to save the world, and in actual fact, I think it's doing the exact opposite, and it's getting us into bigger trouble than um, like we're being conned into this green technology revolution that technology will save us, and Africa looks like it's been completely hijacked now as well. And I think you wrote a bit on that, or you've done some work on Africa. Um,
yeah,
could you
well, they're
talk about that a
trying
bit?
in Africa, and it is one of the most vulnerable places on the planet with the highest numbers of hungry people. And of course, that's because of decades of colonialism and plunder
Yeah.
and, structural by design. Um, it's also one of the few places on Earth that has not been fully taken over by the monoculture corn and soy faux food system that we have. And so there's a lot of interest
Yeah.
amongst speculators and people hoping to make big profit in industrializing the food system there and getting subsistence and traditional farmers off the land and taking that land for, profit making schemes. And GMOs do fit into that. And GMOs are fundamentally really about patenting food so that corporations can own it, and also has shown over decades to be really mostly about engineering food to withstand more and more and more pesticides.
That's it.
So that
Yeah.
pesticide like glyphosate will kill everything green except for the plant that's been genetically engineered to survive it. Um, and this is terrible for soil, for biodiversity, for health.
Yeah.
And so African groups are fighting very hard against this industrialization of their food system and saying we need to invest in agroecological systems, and we need to, be able to save and use and trade traditional seeds. And companies and foundations like the Gates Foundation is very involved in this as well, really want to pass laws that make it harder for farmers to save and use traditional seeds, and pass subsidies so that governments are having to pay for patented seeds and chemicals. And really, that this system, it's often referred to as the Green Revolution,
Yeah.
sort of
I,
euphemistic term of industrializing food systems and putting farmers on a treadmill of debt and high cost inputs like pesticides, fertilizers, and expensive seeds.
my my father studied horticulture, and he was kind of always aware of these GMO seed things, and we had a conversation about half a year ago, I think, where he talked about farmers. He couldn't recall if it was Romania or Bulgaria, and a lot of them were committing suicide because they had gotten into this GMO seed um, business model where they were promised high yields for their seeds. They got rid of their perennials, the long-lasting seeds, and then eventually the yield was so low on the seeds that they bought that would only last 1-2 years. You know all this. Sorry, I'm just explaining to the viewer probably. That they ended up jacking up the prices, extortionate prices for new seeds. They had probably laws in place where they couldn't use their old seeds anymore, so they were sitting ducks, and a lot of them committed suicide. I looked through as much of a Google search as I could do, and I could find nothing on it. And then I read your report just not so long ago, or briefly scanned over it. I went, Jesus Christ, that's the same model. So they've been doing this for a long time. It's probably not new, but they've been doing it. And Africa is obviously one of the most vulnerable and easily corruptible places to do this. And it's so kind of when I read your take on it or your report, I just went, oh Christ, that's a real thing. And they're really the bringing in legislation to not allow farmers to save their own seeds or trade amongst each other. That's the stuff that these guys are doing. And it's also amazing that a Gates Foundation, Bill Gates, by the way, Bill and Melinda, if anyone doesn't know who that is, that they're somehow implicated in it, shocks me. And like, that's the book, right? I went hiking with a few friends a few weeks back in the Alps in Germany when I was over there visiting my family there. And one of my really smart friends, PhD and everything, we ended up talking about Bill Gates, and he said he was just reading this How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. And he was so taken in a way by Bill Gates's plan, and he couldn't see through it. He didn't see it, and it kind of shocked me. I was like, damn it, because I know that if I wasn't kind of in this stuff as much as I am, I probably wouldn't see through it. So I'm kind of, it does shock me that a guy that wise about so many things was like, this is the way forward. It's the only way forward. And we've been fed this massive, well, I think he's wrong. Let's say that way. I don't want to, no need for a lawsuit or anything, but I genuinely think that's a horrible way to save us from climate or environmental issues. And the big picture I see is that this is actually going to do more damage to the world than good. And like what we were talking about with the GMOs, that was even an issue that maybe up until a year ago went completely over my head. I just thought people were overreacting a little bit. It's only seeds. I thought people were jumping up and down about the idea that we're playing God here and we shouldn't be. We shouldn't, like, cloning the Molly the sheep kind of thing. And I just thought, oh no, this isn't that big of a deal. No, it is. It's part of a big business plan that those seeds increase resistance to pesticides over time, and then you need more and more and more pesticides. So and if you look at how much carbon the soil stores and the importance of nature in that way, it's just getting pummeled by all these pesticides. So like the GMO equals glyphosate, I think you wrote it somewhere, is just so on point, just to think the pesticides, herbicides, and everything else, and GMO right beside one another. Um, yeah, it's shocking. Sorry, I went off on another tangent, but it's
Well,
just,
I have a few things to say about that. First, I have to show you a book. Um,
is it
because
another
that
Bill Gates book?
it's a better book.
No,
It's a better book
oh,
than the
it's a
one
Bill Gates.
shows. It's a very, there's a lot of problems to discuss in relation to Bill Gates.
Who-
This is Timothy Schwab, independent reporter who's done amazing work
Wow.
tracking and really explaining why the Bill Gates problem is a huge problem of unaccountable power. I want to say about Bill Gates, he's a prophet of techno optimism.
Yeah,
And not only is he a prophet of techno optimism, there is a massive communications campaign behind him to present his reputation in that way. There's an entire 2 Netflix series adulating Bill Gates. I think this is important to say because that reaction your friend had, it's by design.
yeah.
People are propagandized to believe this
And it's the
about
smart
Bill
way,
Gates being a
right?
savior. And
Yeah,
it's seductive because people want to believe that there are solutions to these problems. I've had these conversations too, where they say like, no, I can't believe that that's a problem because actually I'm really resting a lot of my own sense of well-being on the fact that somebody out there has an
yeah.
answer.
Someone
But
smart. Yeah,
someone has an answer. But with Bill Gates, his entire success has been built around monopolizing.
yeah,
This is his superpower. He is a master monopolizer. He wasn't a technological genius. He wasn't the one who invented. He was the one who figured out how to fully monopolize. And he was in trouble for this, right? Like with the
yeah.
Department of Justice went after Microsoft and said this is an absolute against the law monopoly, like dirty business practice,
Unfair. Yeah,
own the field.
yeah,
So his mindset now around fixing food systems and fixing the climate is also wealth maximization and monopolizing, like
mhm,
industrial food systems, GMOs, patented seeds, patented everything, patenting all of life is a great business proposition for
mm,
companies like Microsoft. It's not good for the food system. On the climate, if you look at what Bill Gates is doing on the climate, he's evangelizing on nuclear power plants. And the reason there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that Microsoft, which is obsessed with AI, is
mhm,
actually using AI to figure out how to get through regulatory hurdles for nuclear power plants because they need power to power AI. Gates said recently, well, AI is only going to cause about a 10% increase. No, he said far less than a 10% increase in power needs. Okay,
Oh,
think
that's
about
all.
that. We already
We're already
are
struggling.
struggling with like we can't with industrializing nations and how are we going to power life? And no, we just need another extra 10% to power AI. No big deal. We'll just build power plants. And
Yeah,
there's a massive propaganda campaign around nuclear power plants for that reason. So it's just, yeah, I think it's really interesting to have these conversations with people and think for ourselves about where our ideas come from about who's
yeah,
going to save us and this myth of the good billionaire. And I did
yeah,
try to watch that Netflix series. It's really interesting because Bernie Sanders presses Gates on, do you have too much money? Several people are asking, do you have too much money? Like, are there structural inequality problems that need to be dealt with in order to feed people?
yeah,
And then the series goes off and gives Bill Gates a good long time to explain, like, basically why he deserves this money. It's very crass, actually, propaganda. For
yeah,
someone, I say that as someone who studies propaganda. Um, there's just a lot of tricks that go into trying to shape public opinion around these issues, and I think it, as you said earlier, shine light on them
yeah.
helps people to find ways to see through them.
Absolutely. I'll never forget the recordings of the legal proceedings where he's just there angry sitting there and you see his the real face on him. What, like he's been like exposed right now. He's got the mask on constantly of the good guy with the sweater and like innocent,
Yeah.
unassuming. Why would I be one of the bad guys? Warren Buffett is backing me. I've said I'm going to give away all my money when I die. You know, all of these things, and you're just like, God damn it, this is all, it's all it's all trickery as far as I'm concerned. And you know, the Oregon bill, are you aware of this kind of thing? Paul Check, I listened to an interview of his, and they talked about getting rid of small farmers, and they dropped his name into the thing. That now, since then, I did look it up a bit, but I have not found anything to link them. But it would fit in completely in line with the idea of get the animals off the grass. Um, uh, it started off apparently as like the large CAFOs, the closed area confinement, whatever. I can't remember what the acronym is for.
Confined
But
animal feeding operation.
uh, sorry?
A confined animal feeding operation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you understand what Tyson Foods and all these guys have been up to, then you understand the logic behind regulating them and all that stuff. But it's what people were jumping up and down about is that it is now rewritten legislation to include small farmers, or in fact even aim at small farmers. Now, if you say you've studied propaganda, what I'm trying to figure out is this a sneaky way of either killing the small farmer out, or making it look like, hey, it's a cry for help for a small farmer, when in actual fact they're they're actually doing what they're saying they're doing, and regulating factory farms that are polluting their waters and
Mhm.
using high levels of antibiotics and all this stuff. And I haven't figured it out, and I don't know. It probably will
Yeah.
come to. Do you have anything to say on that one, or is that still?
I haven't followed that particular debate, but I know what you're talking about, and I just will say that we absolutely need and have to protect small farmers and
Yeah,
encourage people to farming, and really think about how are we going to decentralize farming and localize food supply systems. Like
yeah,
if the pandemic taught us anything, it's how utterly vulnerable and fragile the global food system is. And we
yeah.
just need to be finding ways to survive in local communities. So I
Damn
guess
right.
I'll leave it at that and say I do think there's lots of solutions, and that everybody has a role to play in, just being a leader in your own community, like you are, to stand up and say, here's what it takes to live healthy in our own lives. And then also, as communities, we are going to need to make some changes going forward to ensure that our children can survive on this planet.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah. I mean, I watched the documentary, is it Farmageddon in America? Also quite, uh, I sent it to a friend who has an organic farm for chickens, hens, and to produce eggs. And he said that was probably one of the most depressing things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Not to discourage anyone to not watch it,
Watch
but it,
these films. Food Inc.
food.
2 is also recently out and very good, because it really focuses on the corporate control
Yeah,
problem, the increasing corporatization and concentration.
yeah,
Um, yeah, that which is really, we're in a race against that. Um, but yeah, I just really want to leave people with hope too, and I'm sure you will in your
absolutely.
book,
Yeah,
because you've been doing a lot of aspects of, how to provide in a business sense good and healthy systems and foods. That's what we have to figure out.
yeah,
It's like I said earlier, it's an exciting time to be alive, to be growing up, to be in school, to be young, because the young people are going to be the ones that have to figure this out.
yeah,
But we need to create whole new systems and really challenge the logic of capitalism, that
yeah,
the winner take all system is going to get us anything but, a Bill Gates evangelist as our only hope. Like,
Please,
please give
Bill
us
Gates,
more hope
please.
than that. We need more hope than that. And
Yeah, the software guy is
and the
coming
hope
in to
lies
save the day.
within us, not within a savior, supposed good billionaire. It
Yeah,
really lies within all of us to challenge the systems of oppression and toxic everything. So I figured out during the pandemic, and I'm lucky to live in Northern California where there are lots of small farmers and farmers markets. And I was able to buy most of my food from the weekly farmers market, and I really continued that. So
lovely. Yeah,
that food should be available to everyone, and that's my goal in this work.
yeah. And I 100% agree, Stacey. 100%. We have the regenerative farming is what gives me kind of the biggest hope.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yeah, it's taken off in Ireland as well, a good bit, and that's very hopeful because it is allowing people to buy locally, give them access to good healthy food, and move away from whatever the industrial stuff and food that we only buy in the supermarket, but rather that we get it locally from our local farmers and butchers. My family are farmers, and my the older generation before that were butchers. So I've a whole idea of that. Um, when I speak about Bill Gates and my friend being completely in the zone of Bill Gates, what I also see is, and it's probably controversial, but a lot of the idea of take the animals off the land, um, and produce lab meat that we can go further that way. And what I see is that not only is giving room to GMOs and pesticides and all that stuff, it's creating the idea that the chemical future is the way forward, and that's so it should it feels wrong, and I think it is wrong. Not and I've nothing against vegans, nothing against vegetarians. I was vegetarian myself for a long time, so I'm not trying to stir a pot there. But what I'm slowly arriving at the conclusion, or I did a while ago, is that the promotion of taking the animals off the land uh, by environmental enthusiasts and vegans is feeding into. I've seen the propaganda on the other side, where they go, well, turns out we just need to take the animals off the land, put them into smaller confined spaces, i.e., factory farms, and we create lab meat for the rest of the stuff that for the rest of the people who don't want to eat meat. So for me, that is like a closed loop business concept all in itself, and it feels like we're falling for it hook, line, and sinker, instead of say it becomes an issue on diets when one side is saying the other side has to eat a certain way because it's actually pushing factory farms. This is a very controversial topic, but it's actually pushing factory farms up, and they are on the increase right now. And that's a scary thought because
Mhm.
I'm watching the most prominent environmentalists who have gone vegan over the years, and they're pushing that agenda, and it's actually fully in line with Bill Gates's agenda, and
Mhm.
that is for me a scary, scary thing because I really see it kind of moving that direction with the propaganda that's happening. Um,
Yeah.
it's a layup, you know. Um,
Right. Um, Yes, I wanna say my views on that. Then I'm gonna have to go here, but I
Yes.
think this is really important because um it's a false solution. It's a false solution that really fits within the logic of the current market, is why people like Bill Gates are pushing it. By that I mean that you're right that these technologies are being used in ways that are nefarious, but posing as
The
supposedly a
savior.
solution. So for genetic engineering on that side, there's a lot of experimentation around genetically engineering animals, specifically for the purpose to allow them to fit better in confined, crowded, hot, unhealthy conditions, factory farms. Let's just engineer them to be better in factory farms. That's a chilling thought. It's also, it's full of hubris. It's lacking a
It's
fundamental
bullshit.
understanding of
Yeah.
nature and the interconnectedness of all things. And all of these so-called solutions that we're seeing from the techno optimists and the genetic engineers really fall, I think, within that frame of fundamentally not understanding the interconnectedness of nature. And so that engineered solutions create more problems, which is what's happened with genetically engineered plants. They were engineered and they have a very rudimentary understanding of how these complex natural systems work. So, okay, they figured out how to change a gene so that, or introduce an aspect of a plant that it will tolerate glyphosate. So now you can use more and more glyphosate, but then weeds become resistant, and now we have super weeds, and now they can't even get rid of them with glyphosate. They need lots of pesticides. Like that's what's happening on farms. And the faux meat, let's say cell cultured meat, patented cell food technologies, whatever. Gates is invested in a lot of these companies. People want to eat fake meat, that's fine. Mostly people don't want to eat it. So it's been failing as a business model because nobody ever bothered to ask consumers what did they actually want in this space. But really, this is just another way to sell corn and soy as food. So they're building these huge factories in, say, Nebraska, the middle of corn country, where they call this technique synthetic biology, but basically genetically engineering algae to taste like food, to have certain flavors, to have certain textures. So basically feeding corn and soy into factories, adding genetically engineered algae to make it taste like stuff or have the consistency of beef or whatever, and spit it out the other end as food. It's an ultra processed food. We already know ultra processed foods are unhealthy. We don't know what's in these foods. There's a video online, the best way I can explain this, about this firm that Gates is heavily invested in. It's called Ginkgo Bioworks, and it's a Bloomberg video that shows the inside of the factory, like a day in the life of this factory. What I saw, it was supposed to be a promotional video posing as a news story. That's how, again, the propaganda angle. What I see is a factory with no people, no nature, full of plastic, full of chemicals, like feeding corn and soy into factories, adding chemicals and genetically engineered stuff and sending it out as food. There's your solution that is taking up a lot of space and air, to your point, in the environmental movement, as like, well, we have to do this. This will fix us and save us. No, it won't. We have to fundamentally change unjust colonialist systems that colonize humans, developing nations, nature, this mindset that we can control nature, shifting to a mindset that we're part of nature, that everything we do has a consequence for the system. And so we need to find ways to work in concert with systems in ways that are agroecological to create our food systems, because what happens to the soil matters, right? We can't subsist forever on monocultures of corn and soy. It just is not, it's not going to sustain us. And it's a hugely fragile, vulnerable system to disruption.
Yeah.
And just the idea that we're reducing the number of seeds, reducing biodiversity down to this sort of mechanized way of farming and growing that can be controlled by corporations. A lack of diversity is not a side effect of the system, it's the purpose of the system. Uniformity is something that companies are able to control, and so they want a uniform food system. But we need to survive a diverse food system that considers the ecology of all things. So I think that's the awakening that's happening and the understanding. And I just hope for people to see that fake meat is not going to save us. And Bill Gates is not going to save us. We have to save ourselves. And I think all of us should really actually be learning how to grow our own food.
Well said, Stacy. Thank you. That it just confirms everything that I've thought, and I love hearing it from someone as credible and well-read and a veteran in the industries, or in your work. It's really appreciated. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing what your book, and keep me posted.
yeah, thank you. I will do. Take good
Okay.
care of yourself.
Thank you so much for tuning into this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please hit the like and subscribe button so you'll see more of my content in the future. It would really mean a lot to me because I'm just starting out. Thanks, and see you soon.